insisting that there was never going to be another bust.
What blew us off course was a global financial crisis. It wasn't the level of debt in Britain.
New Labour came at a point when the decline heavy industry was kind of quite rigidly attached to the Conservative Party, at least in the public's mind. And New Labour came to offer something slightly different. Like for people like me, who that was my first time voting in a general election, there seemed to be some kind of offer or promise of a new way of doing things.
Rob Jewett and his wife Rachel live in South Shields, and both their jobs depend on the public sector. Born and raised here, Rob was once a pretty enthusiastic Labour supporter, but now he's not so sure. His MP in this rock-solid Labour seat is the Foreign Secretary David Miliband. He's about to hit town on election manoeuvres.
You see him when he comes into town because he's often followed by a cavalcade of black down windows vehicles and guys in black suits, you know.
Hello, welcome to South Shields.
We met a couple yesterday, Rob and Rachel, both of whom depend on the public sector for their employment.
Education.
She works on a public contract for a management consultant company in the pensions area, and he works at Sunderland University. And I guess seeing things like Alistair Darling on TV talking about cuts that are going to be deeper than they were under Mrs Thatcher fills them with a certain dread.
Yeah, I mean,
What do you say?
I mean, I think you say first of all, it's from a completely different base. Just look around this constituency now, and you'll in the ward that we're going to drive through, Harton Ward. In schooling alone, there's £25 million of investment. When people talk about 3.3 million unemployed in the 80s and the 90s, they're talking about mass redundancy in constituencies like this. Now, that hasn't happened in this constituency in this recession.
South Town Council is in the process of shedding 350 jobs, so you can see that perhaps people fear there'll be a ravaging as far as the public sector is concerned.
Well, they know that this is a different decade coming up than the last decade. Of course they know that, and we've been very, very clear with
different like how?
Well, different in that there is going to be less money to spend than there has been over the last 10 years.
If you're so public sector dependent, right?
Yeah.
You've had the phase of the recession when shops close, businesses go down, right? And the private sector goes under. And then you're about to enter this phase when the public sector cutbacks. So you get bang, wait for a minute, and then a second bang.
The future doesn't look that particularly rosy when you think through what kind of private sector investment is coming this way. But in recent years, there's been quite a lot of investment from the Walmart, Asda Group, BHS and Debenhams, but that doesn't really seem to have helped offset the gradual decline that you can kind of see from the abandoned shop fascias like this one here.
And look what's over there.
And yes, the Publix Bank is across the road, Northern Rock. But even Boozemusters closed, that's how bad the recession has been.
Good afternoon, customers. Welcome to your Asda store on South Shields. This afternoon we have your local MP, David Miliband, in store, and would love if you would like to come over and say hello or have any issues you wish to discuss with him. Thank you.
How'd you find it?
It's quite good, yeah. Hey, man.
Don't lose your
Ladies'
chemises, no.
Thank you. I enjoy it.
Do you?
Here we are at this Asda, which is just open. Clearly it's better than nothing, but what about making things? In a place that's got a heritage of coal mining and shipyards and all of that, is this enough?
No, of course not. You've got to make things. You've got to make things that people want to buy. You've got to make big things with offshore wind turbines, and you've got to make things that you can't hold but are services that people want to have. And we've got to be an economy that is better balanced. And they've got an Asda now, and 400 people work here. It's a big thing. It's a big issue about the future of town centres, future of old high streets. How are they going to survive?
So let me ask you another question about Rob. He's fearful because Peter Mandelson has announced relatively recently £950 million of cuts to higher education. So he fears for his professional future.
But let's be absolutely clear what Peter's done. He has had to make some reductions, but higher education funding is at 2008 levels, which is historically unprecedentedly high levels of commitment to higher education.
Do you think the cap on tuition fees should come off?
I think we've got a review looking at the pros and cons of that. But I think it's important to say whenever people talk about tuition fees, remember, what about the tuition grants?
Well, you say that, but Michael, we met in there, selling ladies' pyjamas when you met him. You said, have you been to university? And he said, no, I can't afford it.
I said, are you going to go to university? And he said, I'll have to see, it depends on what it's going to cost. And
that's a worry, isn't it?
It is, but what I would have talked to Michael
about... But you're threatening his aspirations.
No, what I would have said to Michael is, one, what's your income? Because actually, if you're on relatively low income, you get a grant rather than you pay a fee. Secondly, I would say to Michael, you'll only start paying back when you're on above average income. And so I think Michael would have realised that actually higher education is a good deal. And the only way that we're going to be able to make our living is with our brains. And that's the future.
Bigger than the Angel of the North, and its hope should boost the region's tourism. Work to build a large park in the shape of a giant woman in Northumberland gets underway today. It's being made from earth left over from an open cast mine in Cramlington.
There you go. Just what you need. You have the end of industry and you have the investment in public parks. Lovely, lovely. From production to consumption in one easy step. That just sums up the North East, really.
Hiya.
Hi, ma'am.
Hiya. You alright?
Yeah, good.
I voted for Tony Blair because I thought his policies, when he was going to be elected, affected working class people. It was student grants, old people. I think they need to be putting their own country in order before they try to put everybody else's.
So you're concerned about what, Iraq, Afghanistan?
I am. I'm concerned
bring
about
the boys back?
Bring the lads back, yes. There would be enough money in the pot for old people, students, if we weren't funding immigrants, asylum seekers. There would be housing, there would be healthcare.
A lot of my work's getting taken up by immigrants.
You're in the construction. You're in the construction trade.
The hourly rates come down a hell of a lot
How
in the
much?
last couple of years.
How much?
From £14.50 to £11 at the moment.
And you blame.
It's partly blamed on immigration because they do things a lot cheaper.
Do you not think that's more of a kind of global issue, though? Do you not think other countries...
It probably is.
What's interesting is you sound angry.
I'm not angry, disillusioned probably.
Labour brought minimum wage in. They've brought more rights in for work for employees than any other government have ever brought in.
Taking it from like a business point of view as
No,
well.
I'm not taking it from a business point of view, I'm taking it from a personal.
Do you think the government's done an alright job?
I do, yes.
How many of you were born in Shields? So you're from Shields?
Yeah.
Sundance. You're a Sundancer. That's it. You're a Sundancer. And where did was it your parents or your
grandfather?
And was he a seaman?
He was, yes.
From
1946, he come to South Shields when he was 13 years old. One of the very first people to put a curry in South Shields.
Who's here from Yemen? You're from Yemen. And were you born here?
You always born over there.
And you're from Mogadishu?
Yeah.
That is a very dangerous place.
Yeah, I know.
That is a very. You're definitely better off in South Shields than in Mogadishu. I would say that. Britain has made itself a leader around the world for causes of human rights, for causes of democracy, and for causes of justice. And it's very, very important we stand up for that. In the modern world, if you want to pay your way, you've got to be open to the world. In the modern world, if you want to be safe, you've got to be engaged with the world. You can see the temptation to say, look, it's all too complicated.
And costly. That's the
and
argument.
yeah, but the truth is we are a £1.3 trillion economy. And we're spending a lot of money in Afghanistan this year, but that's £5 billion.
Let me ask you about immigration, because here's this predominantly Yemeni mosque, which is reflective of the Yemeni community who settled here before the Second World War. One of the issues that came up was when we met a construction worker who came in a sandwich shop, and as far as he could see it, thanks to the arrival of Polish economic migrants, his hourly rate had come down by £3. So he maybe is a victim of a race to the bottom.
I don't believe he's a victim of the race to the bottom, because we've had a minimum wage that's been uprated every year for the first time in our history. We've got rights at work which have never existed before. People in this constituency were being paid £1.50 an hour in 1997, so it's important not to forget that. Secondly, he's raising an important point. We do have a relatively open and relatively flexible labour market. There are benefits from that and there are risks associated with it. The fact that you've got a construction industry that is so variable with the economic cycle doubles the importance, trebles the importance of public sector investment.
I keep mentioning this fella Rob. He's voted Labour all his life. First voted in '97. Now, for some of the reasons I've talked about, really isn't so sure. What's your pitch?
In 1997, 1/3 of the people waiting for a hospital treatment in this constituency waited more than 6 months. Now, the figure is 0. Not a single person waits for inpatient treatment. In one ward in this constituency, in Harton Ward, £25 million is being spent on new schools. There are more people in employment. They're being paid the minimum wage. The pensioners are getting the winter fuel allowance and the pension credit. And this is a constituency which has benefited massively from sustained Labour government. And what you build up slowly, you can knock down quickly. And that's what the Tories will do. They will knock it down quickly. And I would say to him, no government is perfect. But this is a government that has stood up for the values that his grandfather and his father stood for. And that's why we deserve his vote. Hello. Hello. How are you?
All right.
You're not carrying my leaflets in there, are you?
No.
How are you doing? Can we count on your vote?
I should think so. Not happy with a few things, but
Well, none of us are happy with everything.
I know. All right.
There was a bright future ahead if he believed Tony Blair's mantra like I did at the time of education. I'd be kind of almost blind to not see that I am a product of some of the benefits of the promises New Labour kind of advocated in the late 1990s. I'm a working class lad from a council estate who's managed to make it through various levels of education to actually be an educator themselves. I suppose in many respects that is a good example of social mobility, but my journey is by far not typical of everybody. The young people of today are going to be saddled with unpayable debts in an economic climate where their futures are completely uncertain. Labour used to be interested in the broader spectrum of those people who are at the sharp end of the wedge. It's no longer about that. It's about the emergent middle classes, and it's about looking after the interests of those people. I don't see Labour as a party of the people anymore. I see it as a party. What is it a party of? I don't see what it's a party of anymore.